Fitzgerald. This is Dubai Works, where we interview the business leaders making a difference in this great city.
That business with scalability was very interesting to me.
I like building something that has legacy.
The sponsor of today's show is eVest, a digital brokerage firm founded with the vision of bringing trust and credibility to the world of online trading. eVest provides investors with better opportunities in the online trading industry, offering self-trade service with high level of security and secured global licenses. eVest offers 100% reliable stocks with zero commission. Last podcast in September, and I think at the intro to these weekly podcasts for the next few months, I'm just going to be talking about how busy Dubai is, how many events are on, and how much is happening in the city, in the region. The World Cup's coming. There's just so much positivity. It's kind of opposite to what's happening in the rest of the world. This week I attended different events. I was at a Snapchat event about new technologies for augmented reality. I was at the Dubai Metaverse Assembly, an amazing event with world leaders for the Metaverse in Dubai Future Museum. And there's just so much positivity, so much energy, so much things going on. But today's conversation is more about the business fundamentals, more about finance, and more about learning finance. So it's a really good conversation. It's a really free-flowing conversation. Shereen has a really interesting perspective on business. So I think even though it's about education and in the finance world, I think actually it works across all industries, and I hope you all get some value out of it. Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. This week, I have the pleasure of being in the company of Shereen Tawfiq. She's the CEO of Balinca, which has a very specific name and meaning, and she'll explain that. They're a company that's empowering women entrepreneurs by teaching them the fundamentals of financial literacy in order to properly manage their SMEs. Balinca uses gamification and simulation to make the knowledge transfer fun and easily assimilated to those with a non-financial background. Good morning, Shereen.
Good morning. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you haven't done many podcasts, but you know your subject matter really well, so it should be a good conversation.
I love finance. I've been in love with finance and numbers since I was 12.
Really? What's that? I haven't heard anyone saying they love finance.
Oh, yeah?
Do you have a maths mind? Do you like numbers, or do you like the sort of commercial side of finance?
No, I've always liked numbers, and I was always like doing mental math, and my dad was always kind of encouraging me to do mental math. We used to compete.
Okay.
But then when I was 12, I'm one of 4 girls and no brothers. So my dad always wanted to make sure that we all are financially savvy and we all know how to deal with numbers and not just numbers, money.
Yeah.
So when I was 12, my dad started giving me an allowance every month, and he had conditions. Like I had to write everything. So it's like basically accounting without telling me that it's accounting. And then I had to save. It doesn't matter how much, but I had to save. And I can never ask him for anything. So I need to manage my budget. And I cannot tell you how that shaped my life until now. And I remember once I bought a golden ring, and I put it as an expense. And he's like, no, this is an investment. And I was like, well, what's an investment? And then he said, when things go up in value, or like you can sell it for a higher amount, then it's an investment. Otherwise, it's a cost. And then we started talking about investments, etc. And then he got me into like foreign exchange and stock market. And then I started working with him when I was 19, and that just put me on a different level.
What industry was he in?
So he was a real estate investor, even though that he's a professor. He was a professor by day, but he was investing in real estate. So he would buy land, develop it, and then either sell it or rent it out and manage it.
Okay.
Both commercial and residential properties.
Okay, we'll go into a little bit more about that, but just firstly explain the company, the name,
Yes.
the meaning, and what you do.
Yeah, so Balinca is short for balance sheet, income statement, cash flow. Many people think it's a girl's name because I'm a woman and the people who created Balinca are women, but no, it's just the short of the 3 most important financial statements.
Yeah, interesting. And what does it do?
Yeah, so we teach finance through games. Now, every entrepreneur makes mistakes, but the problem is that the mistakes that entrepreneurs make are expensive. We try to alleviate that by getting them to play a game and make those mistakes in a fictitious setting. So we save them. Valuable mistakes. We save them from making mistakes. Also, mistakes are the best way to learn. If you never fall, you will never be able to walk. You need to learn how to get up from falling in order for you to be able to walk. And that's the thing. People don't stress on understanding what entrepreneurs make, like the mistakes that entrepreneurs make, because that's like valuable insights. But people don't share that. They don't talk about it. It's usually the media is always covering the success and talking about all the success that entrepreneurs make, but they don't shed the light on the mistakes. So we focus so much on mistakes within companies, within the financial setting. And from that, you also learn the financial statements, how to analyze financial health of a business. Like, for example, Richard, if you come to this workshop in one day, I promise you, not only that you will know all the financial statements, you'll be able to look at a financial statement and assess if this company is going to close shop in a couple of years or not.
Brilliant. That reminds me of how Warren Buffett assesses companies. He just looks at the nitty gritty reports, not the headlines in the media.
Thank you. And that's the thing, the fundamentals, the business fundamentals. That's every entrepreneur, not just entrepreneur, every professional needs to understand the fundamentals because every business decision has a financial impact, but not everybody understands the facts and figures behind their decisions. Once we understand the impact, then we can make better decisions.
The last week on the show, or the week before, we had Nusha from Linkviva next door, and she explained how she's been able to run an events business with losses on different events over 17 years because she understands the basics, the margins around the different ratios around profit and receivables and Balinca, as you described it.
Exactly.
It's just the fundamentals. But so it does workshops, and what else? Or how do you do the workshops, or how does it work?
So we're mainly B2B. So we go to companies or NGOs who want us to train their entrepreneurs or accelerators, etc. And we offer the workshop to entrepreneurs and professionals. But right now we are at the final stage of our online game. So we're translating the game into online, and we're at the final stage, and we're going to launch it by January. So that will give us a chance to spread it over, to expand globally as well. And every month or so, I host an open workshop either in Saudi or in Dubai, just to kind of allow entrepreneurs who can be sponsored by a company or an accelerator that they want to come on the journey on their own. But I just don't do it often enough. I just do it once a month.
Yeah. And do you describe yourself as an education training company, Balinca? Is that how it's set up?
Yeah, it is primarily educational, but we use gamification and we use simulations in order for us to present the best way of learning. Because, if you hear an information, your brain only retains 5%. If you read it, you retain 10%, and you can go up in the information retention if you add discussion, for example. But then if you get into active learning is that you're using multiple parts of your brain and also multiple senses. So you're moving things, you're using your eye to visualize things. that will give you a much deeper information retention. You retain up to 75% of the information. I have people who attended Balinca 5 years ago, and they still see me and they still remember me, and they say, I still remember, the balance sheet, and I still remember because it's such a powerful tool.
You mentioned 5 years ago. So when did the company originally start?
An interesting story. So I first, my first experience with Balinca was in 2014, where there were two ladies I got to know. Again, serendipity played a huge part here. There are two ladies, Belgian ladies, who they developed this game. I met them because there was a friend of mine who was raving about this course that has like transformed his life. So because I've always been interested in finance and teaching finance. So I met them, and they're in Belgium, and they were looking for someone to manage the region. So I became their agent. And then in COVID, they announced that they wanted to retire, and they were inviting just 2 or 3 bidders to acquire the company. Luckily, again, serendipity played a huge part because I bid for the acquisition, and I acquired it in March 2021.
So the company, it wasn't just set up in the region; it was set up elsewhere.
Yeah, so
brilliant.
They started in 2003. When they started Balinca in 2003, but mainly focusing on Europe. And they had really good clients, but it's just like this is a lifestyle business for them. They developed it, and they were very happy with the customer that they had. And I came in, and I wanted to revolutionize. I want to turn it online, and I had some big ambitions. And then COVID came, and they decided they wanted to sell, and I was like,
now you can do it.
Now I can do it.
So when you came across it first, you had enthusiasm, you had ideas, and you thought about maybe bringing it to the region as a franchise or something like that. You worked with them on some training programs, but you weren't fully operational, or you didn't fully...
Yeah. So I was basically like, I wanted to test it on people. Like, I liked it, but then, this doubt in your head thinking, oh, maybe I like it, but maybe other people won't. So
people see things differently.
Exactly. But then I saw day in and day out, every time we do it, people are just amazed. And like, if there's something called NPS score. NPS score is Net Promoter Score. It's how many of your customers are your ambassadors, brand ambassadors. This one consistently had more than 90% NPS score, and that is like unheard of in the training industry. And I've always been like so excited about it, but I wanted to invest, and I wanted to kind of like take it globally, and I wanted to digitalize it and everything. But the vision at the beginning was not coherent. I wanted to go all out, and they're very conservative. But then once they told me that they wanted to retire, that was like, that's it for me. Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to acquire this because I know that it has so much potential.
And without disclosing too much, how does an acquisition, especially during COVID, work? Like, did they put a proposal out, and did you basically, did you acquire assets, or did you acquire a legal entity, and how did that work?
Yeah, so
the finance part of it, maybe. What did you learn?
So the good thing is that I was a banker before, and I have some experience in valuations and how you value a company. So you have to first run the numbers in order for you to understand what's the range of the valuation. The valuation is never an exact number. It's usually a range. And then, of course, like if you're a good negotiator, you can go in the lower range if you're the buyer, or if you're a poor negotiator, they will win, but then it was a really interesting exercise for me, because I was so lucky to find such an amazing lawyer who was helping me also. And honestly, the previous owners are amazing. We're friends more than anything. So it was such a smooth ride. There was no bad feeling. Like, there was a time, it was a time when I had my second child. So I actually had to take off 3 months because I had to deliver my baby and nurse. And then we went back again, and they were waiting for me to come back. That's a testament to how good we have, how good a relationship we have as owners. And and then so I'm trying to go back to answer your question the best way I can without revealing the deal was very creative. I'm actually very, very glad that I created this deal, because it wasn't like a plain vanilla one, but it got the best. It gave me the best and gave them the best, you know? I don't want to reveal too much of the deal.
Yeah, but basically you structured something unique that had the buyer and seller's interests at heart, but you end up acquiring this and you can run it. Speaking about something like this, is this an IP? Is this a game that's developed? Did they register it in Europe? Is it now a Middle Eastern company?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So first, what we did was we acquired the IP and the trademark. So we are registered in all of Europe as a trademark. We're also registered here as a trademark. And we acquired the IP and we moved the IP to the Dubai-based company. Because it's a Belgian company, Belgian laws are very difficult, and especially with taxation. And also we don't have those many clients in Belgium. So I closed the company in Belgium, and we just moved all the assets onto the Dubai company. And and then mainly that's the main thing. We are registered right now. We are in the process of registering the trademark in the US, Latin America, and Asia.
Amazing.
So we'll be completely global.
Especially with online coming on board. And the female women entrepreneurs, the B2B, it's not necessarily startups. You're targeting sort of SME females. So is it just exclusively, does the game only work for female, or is that okay?
So the reason why I talk about females, because we see it, especially in this region, women doubt themselves more than men. And I think there are two ways. There's this DNA, doubting themselves, and imposter syndrome is more visible amongst women than men. And also there is another thing. Women, again, not now, I'm talking about women in the Middle East for the past 20, 30, 40 years. We're usually in pockets of women-only discussions. So we talk a lot about, not necessarily we don't talk about business as much, But then men on the other side, they talk about business all the time, right? From an early age. So they get that second-hand intelligence.
Yeah.
They are better positioned because they are in the field from an early age. They are learning by listening and learning secondhand of what's happening around in the business world.
You think in a Arab societies particularly, yeah,
especially. So I come from Saudi Arabia. I see that shift. That literally, it's like as if I was in a different country than now. Saudi has transformed. Now. Women are talking about business just as much as men. Women and men are mingling.
But growing up, that was never the case.
Oh my God, yeah. It was I remember when I was in university, that was 25, 26 years ago. And I told them after graduation I wanted to work, and everybody was looking at me like, what? What are you talking about? Oh, you want to be a teacher? I'm like, no, I don't.
What did you study?
I studied English literature.
In Saudi?
In Saudi. I really wanted to study abroad. For me, watching TV, and I used to watch, I'm not proud of this, but I used to watch The Bold and the Beautiful, like soap opera. And I remember just looking at it and I was thinking, the US, even though we used to visit, but it's like the US and the UK is planets away. Or how do women work? And there is opportunities and stuff like that. And I was thinking, is it how do I get there? And I really wanted to study abroad. So I was trying to focus, to push my dad to let me go and study abroad, but it was a no. Unmarried woman who's 18 years old it's unheard of that you send an unmarried 18-year-old girl to study abroad by herself. That's nothing. It's not happening. I tried. I went on a hunger strike, but that didn't work. Both my parents looked at me and they're like, "Oh, you'll break in a couple of days, and I did. So because I went to Arabic school, so my English was really bad. I learned English on my own when I was 16, and I thought I knew, like innately, I knew that I needed to speak English and I needed to learn computers, and I didn't have access to either one. So I thought, I'm going to study English and I'm going to practice. I'm going to buy a computer. I'm going to just practice computer. And my dad didn't understand what I was doing because he thought I would be a doctor or something. There is more secure. He's a bit risk averse. So he thought if I was a doctor, then at least I can secure a job being a doctor. But then English literature, like, how are you going to use it? But then I was lucky enough that these were the 2 skills that I needed to land my first job. And and the rest is history.
But your dad, although it was against the norms of the time to study abroad, he still let you to work, and not everyone would have worked out of university. So you were working from a young age.
Yeah. So he was he always had this belief that even if he builds so much wealth for us, we can blow it up and we can just spend it and not be mindful about wealth. So he wanted to make sure that we understood, we had work ethics. And especially, I'm the youngest. So as my sisters got married and stuff, he realized, he's getting older. Who's gonna carry on the business? Who's gonna carry on the family wealth, etc. So he got me in at an early age. So he was like using me as a secretary at the beginning, and then slowly getting me to read contracts and meeting lawyers and just like kind of embedding me, just like what I was talking about with men, being in the arena and understanding, because you pick up so much when you're in a meeting and there is business being discussed. So law, like legal documents, and I used to wear a hard hat and go to sites and construction sites and stuff, and he was always giving me so much support that even if a contractor was like belittling me, he would look at me so I can answer him. So he wouldn't answer on my behalf because he wanted me to have that guts, to have guts to speak up for myself. And I can't thank him enough for this. And I hope that every parent would instill that work ethics in their kids.
Yeah, it sounds like he not only coached and taught you finance, but also that sort of encouraged you enough to believe in yourself, that glass ceiling thing, that you could do it.
Life skills.
Yeah.
Because I've always suffered from imposter syndrome. I've always thought I'm not good enough. And I think he knew it, but we never talked about it openly, but he was doing everything in his power to get me to believe in myself. So one thing is studying, and then another thing is working, and then now you're an entrepreneur. Were you an entrepreneur before? Because that's an extra scary jump, isn't it? Yes. And again, I always go back to my dad. So I started working in the bank, and that was not easy because I was the first Saudi woman to work in the bank, and I was having a lot of social struggles because the extended family was not very happy about that. I was the first woman to work with men from both families, from my mom and my dad's family. So that was like bringing shame to both families. And that was a stress not only on me, but also on my parents. And I remember my mom was taking was shielding me from many insults and attacks, and many people who didn't want to speak to us because I was bringing shame to the family. That in the Eastern world, it's people are triggered by shame, and in the Western world, it's guilt. So shame is a big deal, and honor is a big deal. So that was the most difficult thing that I went through. Actually, studying finance professionally as a banker was a walk in the park compared to the blows that you get socially. But then it got better and better, especially like with King Abdullah came in, and then later, and then now there is no difference between men and women. I wish I could write a book, because what I have seen 20 years ago is like as if you're in a different country.
It's fascinating, isn't it? You know, we saw statistics this week about the unemployment rate for females is the lowest of all time.
Yes.
In Saudi particularly. And, you know, the workplace, not only the segregation in cafes and restaurants, it's just normal now for Saudi females to work anywhere.
Yeah. I remember when I started working in the bank, and I was trying to promote women to come in on work. My managers would always say, "Oh, but a woman can come in and then she will get married and we will never see her again. And we're investing in like training and developing women and stuff." And I was looking at them and I said, in the last 3 years, I was always there. I was only there for 3 years. And I said, in the last 3 years, how many men changed jobs? And I am here standing, and I'm not going anywhere. And it was an uphill battle to convince management to hire more women. And then there was also, because women actually are very loyal, and they want to prove themselves, and they want to have a good environment and just like thrive. And then in 2005, I remember there was a huge turning point for my life, actually, my career. I discovered that I was earning 50% of what my male peers were earning, and I was better than them. I was teaching them. I know I was better than them. So I went to my manager, and the first instant was, this is reality, you know, like you just accept it. And I said, no, I can't, because
he didn't lie about it. He said, "This, it's true. What you found out is true, but this is the way it is. You're going to have to deal with it."
Yeah. So he's one of the managers who shaped also my life and my career, because he was like very upfront about things, but he also never took no for an answer. He fought for me. So he convinced upper management in the bank to give me an equal pay, and I got in overnight like a 55% adjustment, which is unheard of.
Wow.
But then I turned to him and I said, okay, now you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and tell all the girls in the bank that I got that. And he's like, oh, please, just give me 6 months. But in 6 months, they actually adjusted all of the girls' salaries to be equal to men.
That's a great story. And that's kind of, you know, before the recent change. But so changes and the sort of more females at work. But what, you know, someone like you and what we found with our business in Riyadh is that the females are ready to work because the universities, they're educated. So It's not that they don't need to be educated. It's just that it's that the society wasn't ready and that the jobs weren't necessarily there. But now that that's happening, have you found that yes, they're educated, but what about their financial acumen? Is that there, or is that a wider problem?
So it boils down, in my opinion, it boils down to their exposure. Again, as I said, men are in a better position because they're exposed in the arena, and women need to take themselves out and get exposure. Women in Saudi Arabia are more educated than men. The statistics show that there are more university graduates, more female university graduates than men. And when you see, in a given workshop, I always see women, they're like, want to eat the book because they're so curious and they want to improve themselves. While it's like while men, I feel like sometimes they kind of taking it easy because I know all of that, right? So I feel the main issue that's stopping women from getting more funding, from getting better career, or and especially with entrepreneurs, is primarily the doubt in themselves and the exposure. So they need to stop the imposter syndrome, stop that voice that you don't know. And the other one is being curious and learning and making more mistakes. And so you can build that backbone, and then you can build on your mistakes and learn and be better. In terms of funding, so you know that last month, I think there was a total of $370 million funding for startups, but only 1% went to women. It sounds unfair by all measures. However, also the number of women who are getting into entrepreneurship is smaller than men. So this is one. Women sometimes think that the ceiling is lower, so they don't have a bullish way of like dominating the world. Men have that, and it's innate. So I think my advice to women is that if you think you want to achieve 1 million, multiply that by 100 and just push yourself.
Think bigger.
To achieve more than you thought you can.
Yeah. But with Balinca, so balance sheet, income statement, P&L, cash flow, these sound like fundamentals of running a business, like a CEO, or these are important things, like whether it's like in the US, they say mom and pop store, if it's bricks and mortar, if it's a restaurant, if it's a media business, if it's a startup, you need to know these fundamentals. But that doesn't really impact someone with a job per se, or does it?
It does, because in multiple ways. If you are, let's say, in marketing, you need to set budgets for how much marketing expenditure you're putting. And you need to understand how is that going to affect your business. But then you need to not only look at the P&L, that I'm going to invest this and I'm expecting Y. I'm going to invest X and I'm going to expect Y. You also need to see the business as a whole, to see your part in the bigger picture. So it makes your decisions more savvy, rather than we need to spend 300,000 in social media. Who set that 300,000? How did you come up with this number? And how is this 300,000 going to benefit the business as a whole? You need to have that understanding, that bird's eye view. And then the second thing, which I see it day in and day out, men, not necessarily men, people, professionals who get promoted to a senior level. They start from, for example, shopkeepers, and they worked really hard and they go into managers. Then suddenly overnight, men, or not necessarily men or women, are expected to answer to the board or to answer to the CFO or to be in charge of numbers. The funny thing is that management look at them thinking like, you don't know a P&L? No, they never had the chance. So then what happens? The company sends them to finance for non-finance. Yeah. And usually it's like a 3 to 5 days course. And the way finance is taught, unfortunately, is very backwards. The people go in, they don't understand, and they are shy to ask questions. They come back exactly the same. And they don't know how to apply what they learned on the daily job. These are the people that we get calls from the most, because it's overnight. I have to understand all of that, and I have to answer to finance, to the CFO, for example.
Yeah, fascinating. But these, I'd love to try out your game one day, but you make it sound simple and, workshopy and great. But actually these things may be simple, but they're technical enough. Like I remember studying accounting and finding like balancing a balance sheet isn't simple, right? And,
Richard, you must come.
No, but look, we do balance sheets here, and my CFO does it with me, and I look at the P&L every month. And I had when I was in an agency here, I had an SBU, I had a business unit. So I was an entrepreneur, right? And I made all these decisions, and the thing that you described there, I was ready. I was pushing to actually became an MD of a startup before here. So I was ready for all those things because I pushed internally to do it. Maybe we're talking about maybe females wouldn't, but I did do that. But even still, now, every month when we sit down the balance sheet, I know there's something I don't know. And there's always something new. There's intangible assets, or there's understanding of why is shareholders' equity there, and what does it mean, and what does it do? And then what if we moved it to this entity, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. That's not simple. I read lots of books. I listen to lots of things, and
You have not done Balinca
okay,
yet.
I haven't done Balinca.
So this is why I'm so excited about this, because there isn't any we don't have any competition in the
Okay.
market. And let me give you just a taster. Okay, imagine that we have. I wish I had my tools. I want my props. So let's say, imagine that you have a company and you invested, you put 20 million in this company, and then somebody asked you to produce, let's say, a car. You're in the business of making cars, and then you got the raw material, and you made the car, and you wanted to sell it to your clients. So you started your business with 20 million, and it cost you 6 million to make these cars. And then you went to sold it to the client, and the client said, I'm going to pay you after a quarter. So then your business started with 20 million, you gave the cars to the client, and then now you have 14 million, correct? Where's
the money?
Where's the money? So in a workshop setting, of course, like this is so weird because I'm doing it based on memory, but in a workshop setting, I try to push people to understand that every single moment has to show an accurate accurate picture of the company. So in the moment of them delivering the cars to the client promised, they gave them something like an invoice, so the client promised to pay them 12 million, for example, for
a
these
booking
cars.
order, a purchase order,
a purchase order. So that purchase order has a value, and we have to simulate it, we have to reflect it on the game. And where do you put that? So then after a while, they discovered that you have to put it in accounts receivable. And that is accounts receivable. Accounts receivable is unpaid invoices, because in every second of a company, you need to have an accurate picture of that company. So once you understand that accounts receivable are unpaid invoices, then you will never forget it. But of course, like if you have the props, it makes more sense because you'll move things around and you'll see things.
Yeah.
I hope that
that's good. It's good. You've convinced me that it's needed for me again and for the team. So you can work with anyone. You can work with startups. You can work with people who actually make these decisions, and you can work with people who don't make these decisions.
I have a story for that. When I launched in October, so I basically relaunched. So Balinca was a bit small in Belgium, not globalized. And then when I acquired it, I rebranded it and I started the online. And then in October, I decided the website was live, so I launched and I made a big deal on social media. And then a friend of mine contacted me and he said, "You might be the answer to my prayers." And I said, "What's up?" And he's like, "I have been trying to study finance. I come from a non-finance background. I'm a COO of this company, and I am terrified of numbers because I have to answer to the board, and I am promised a CEO position, but I don't know much. And I hired a finance tutor. I went for finance for non-finance, and they didn't work. And I said, just come." So he came literally 2 days later. And he attended the session, and throughout the whole game, he was like, "Is it this simple? Are you sure? Are you tricking me?" He was thinking that I'm making it too simple, and I said, "No, this is real." Like, he got to know what EBITDA is, why we use EBITDA. He got to know what is ROE, what ROA, all of these things, all of the lingo, and he was the whole time he was like, "This is fascinating. This is fascinating." And he was my first client. His company was my first client.
Really amazing. But it sounds like, it's funny. It sounds like he tried a lot, so he had the right attitude for it. How do you get people to try it, or who, aren't sort of willing, right? So say you have people in the company who are very good technical people, and they don't ever want to be CEO, and they don't ever get what you said there is important. They're never managing budgets. But how can they understand? Because an easy way to tell them is that, well, if you manage your own personal economy, if you manage your own finances, but how do you do that in a sort of professional capacity?
So I love this question. Thank you so much for asking this, because every person in any company has a financial impact on that company. For example, I was working with a tech company and they have a ton of developers. And these developers, of course, they want to do the best in their minds to make the best product. And they were pushing time, so like they were supposed to deliver, let's say in 6 months, but then suddenly it becomes 8, 9, 10 months. Of course, because, the things happen. And then that company came to me and said, we want time management. We want to teach the developers time management. And then when I did my research and stuff, and I was talking to some of them, and I said, they don't need time management. They need to understand that time is money. So when I did like a very simple calculation, now they don't know what IRR is, internal rate of return. So I just did a shocker, So I was talking to them about IRR, internal rate of return. If two companies doing exactly the same thing, one company launched in 10 months and the other company launched in 20 months, the company that launched in 10 months have 5,000 IRR higher than the company that launched in 20 months, because they, especially when it comes to investments and especially when it comes to tech, they depend on VC money. A VC fund manager would look at IRR. If the developers understand what IRR is, they will work much faster and they will just get the project done quicker.
Love this.
So,
yeah. It's great. It's so relevant, even with our company as well. Like, we have one of our values is velocity, and that's what it creates momentum, because you get more output. But it's so, I remember doing a slide once, saying to people that, I remember maybe we had 10 employees, and the cost of running the business that day, it wasn't a burn rate company, it wasn't a VC company or whatever, but the cost is fixed no matter what. So if you push something, and everyone loves using the word push the meeting, push
right.
it, the deadline. If you push something to the next day, if you did it that day, it's not about getting people to stay later, but if you actually are more productive that day, if you do 10 emails from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. that night,
yep.
then the next day you've created momentum. So you've actually, for the same fixed cost the day before, you've actually kicked the football down the road further. So you've got more work done, and then you've increased the output, seeing if the market will place a commercial value on that. So if you apply that rule every day, and then if it compounds, if there's more and more people, then you can achieve a lot more.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I couldn't have put it better.
I need Balinca to train our team, do a better job than me. Amazing. So you revamped the company. So the initial investment to acquire it needed extra investment to relaunch it, and now investment again to do the digital side. Are you making money?
So right now, we are very close to breaking even. We are, I would say, we're estimate to, hopefully we're going to break even by April next year.
Yeah.
And that's great.
That's great.
Yeah, because it's the way I structured the company, I'm more of a fundamentals person. I like business fundamentals and I like cash flow. There are two things that you need to know. For any entrepreneur needs to know about growth and profitability. You can push for growth, especially like tech companies. They want to push for growth because they want to show that many users are using this product, this platform, etc. Just to prove that there is product market fit. But the profitability comes secondary. Like we saw this in WeWork, for example. For every $1 that they were making in revenue, they were spending $1.2, just to kind of prove that we want to dominate the market, we want to build the brand, etc. I personally, I'm more of a risk-averse person, so I like profitability and I like fundamentals, because if I decide to sell it, then I want to have someone who appreciates profitability and sturdy company that grows steadily, but less risk. You're taking less risk. It's a personality thing, because if you're risk averse, I highly recommend that you focus on profitability and making sure that you're having cash flow. And I don't need to rush and get funding, because I have big plans for this company.
But how do you describe it? So big plans and tech and international IP and things like that. How do you rationalize I hear the sort of risk averse and opposite to that, but you know, ed tech is a big space. It can get VC money. But you need burn rates. You need to spend and lose money and be prepared to do that for years.
That is true. That's very true. And edtech is actually one of the most difficult industries, because you have two problems with edtech. There's the content, and then there is the ingenuity of the design. So you have the content that if you put content, someone else can come and watch all of your videos and produce almost exactly the same, just tweak a few words, and the IP collapses. Like you lose the IP because the content can be copied. And then the other one is the ingenuity of design. And like, for example, we started the design. This is the second iteration. Well, I didn't go to market with our first iteration. We designed the first game, and I thought, okay, great. I'm ready. I'm going to dominate the market tomorrow. We tested it on a few people. They weren't confused. It was not the same, because I'm used to this aha moment in the training room. I'm used to people like buzzing. And then when we did it online, it flopped, and I was shocked, and I was so depressed. And then I had to kind of like gather the right team and the right the mindset, and now we're doing it differently. So edtech is not easy. It's like if you're just putting videos online, like any Udemy or Udacity, all of these people, they're just putting content online. That content, if you don't have the strong brand to support it, can be copied. And still nobody knows Balinca as much. So if I'm just putting content online, somebody else can use my
way of explaining something,
exactly, and copy it, and I'm vulnerable to that. And that's why I decided I'm going to go slowly but steadily. There is a very nice analogy. There is a book that I read called "Shortcut Your Startup." Can't remember by whom, but it really, really good book. I read a lot, so I can't remember the authors, but I remember the books. It was telling that the entrepreneur needs to decide: are you a sailboat or are you a speedboat? They're both boats, but each one has a different characteristics. Sailboat will go slower, but it's steady, and the wind can take you faster or slower, and the chances of you losing the boat is small. While the speedboat, you need a lot of power at the beginning. That's what I mean by VC money. You need a huge VC money to kind of push you and get you fast, but also the risk of you flipping or losing the boat is higher. So who are you as a person, as an entrepreneur at the beginning? Are you a sailboat or a speedboat? You have to make that decision. And when I looked at it, I was intrigued, and I was toying with the idea of getting VC money, but actually no, I want to test it. I want to shrink my investment to really the bare minimum, test it, make sure that it's working, the game is working, people are liking it, and then build it from it, and then possibly I may get investment later. You can look
at your options, when it works. But I think what you're doing is right. Just because you're adding digital doesn't mean VC. The reality of doing a workshop in a real world can be online without huge investment if you do things in a smart way. And you can have, do you want to build an e-commerce marketplace to challenge Amazon, or do you want a store that is able to sell things online? You don't need to raise millions of dollars to sell what you're selling in a store on the internet. You can just set up a Shopify or whatever. The tools are there online to enable anyone to have an online presence. We now have a lot more ability in this region to do things like payment gateways and many things. So it's a lot better. And did you think of it that way in terms of the commercial model of the online presence, or is there a SaaS model, and how did you look at that?
Yeah, so I learned a ton in the last year alone, because initially I wanted to build everything from scratch, of course. We're doing something that hasn't been done before. But then, because I started meeting so many more people in the industry, I discovered that there's so many tools that you can use. You don't need to build from scratch. You can use a ready-made tool and you can just adjust it to fit your needs, and then that will drive your cost down just to prove the concept. Then you can do your own later. But at the beginning, use whatever SaaS models, whatever ready-made codes that you can copy online, and just to prove the concept at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, Shereen, we're coming to the end. That's flown by, but tell me a little bit more about what's next. What do you have in store for Balinca? And
Yeah, so interesting projects that we were signing. So one very interesting project is we are partnering with a committee in the with the Saudi government. There is a committee that focuses on the well-being of prisoners and prisoners who are recently released.
Amazing.
To get them into entrepreneurship, and we are hopefully leading that program. And hopefully, once we prove the concept, we might scale it to other governments as well. So that's like super, like for me, that's something that really resonates with me, because especially when the world throws you a curveball, but then somebody else gives you like a tool to kind of like work around it, then I feel like that's one of our biggest excitements. Other things like, of course, we're continuing to deliver the training and partner with NGOs and partner with accelerators, and hopefully, inshallah, in January we're going to launch the game. We'll
watch out for it.
Yeah,
amazing. And obviously, it's available in Arabic as well, or it will be in Saudi.
Yeah. So everything is in Arabic as well, and that's a huge market, because we got calls from Iraq, for example, and Jordan. And it's the need is unbelievable.
Yeah, and a hugely exciting time for this emerging market as well. And you've been in the region a long time. Do you see this as an emerging market that will emerge? Are you sort of optimistic about the future?
Very much so, because with everything that is going on in Europe and the US, so there is recession in the US that is like holding all funding back from entrepreneurs. Here, it's the opposite. We're thriving. The whole of the region. Like, I have very big plans. I think there's so many things that are very optimistic in the region, not only in Saudi, but also the region as a whole. Not so much like, remember 10 years ago, things were gloomy, and also the VC ecosystem, or the entrepreneurship ecosystem was at an infancy stage. But in such a short 10 years time, it transformed that. True. I think this is our Silicon Valley. Like, this is going to be the world's Silicon Valley.
Yeah, amazing. Brilliant note to finish on. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks
so much for the interview. Great to hear about Balinca, and we'll follow in future.
I can't wait for you to come and try it.
I'm definitely going to.
You have to, yes.
Love to learn more. Thanks a lot, Shereen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Shereen, for that. That was a great interview. Looking forward to testing out and trying the game and see if I can learn some more. And please do check them out as well on their website and social handles. Thank you to Shahir and Ali for producing the show. Thank you all for listening. Please do subscribe or follow on Apple or Angami or Spotify if you're listening to the podcast. And if you'd like to watch the interview in full or any other of our Smashy shows, there's Smashy Tech Bil Arabi with Hala Bassam. There's also the gaming shows, the Movement Casa social media, our Smashy Crypto show. We have Smashy Sports, so we're streaming live sports in the UAE with the futsal leagues, the volleyball leagues, the handball leagues, all on smashy.tv or on the iOS or Android apps or on smart TVs as well. It's free for a month. Check it out, see if you like it, give us some feedback, and you can watch any of the 180 or so Dubai Works podcasts there as well.